US President Donald Trump's recent executive orders are raising concerns about the potential impact on global trade. For India, it's a tricky time to devise the country's budget. Here's a closer look perhaps at how these US trade policies could influence India's fiscal strategy. Take a look.
US President Donald Trump's recent executive orders, signed on the first night of his second presidency, outline a protectionist America First trade policy. This includes imposing global supplemental tariffs and threatening a 100% tariff on BRICS nations, including India, if they reduce reliance on the US dollar for foreign trade. However, economists believe these measures will have minimal immediate impact on India's budget. The Indian government had already anticipated potential tariff changes when the US election results were announced in November, factoring in these risks during the budget preparation process. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is expected to maintain a calibrated approach in the upcoming budget, balancing domestic competitiveness and global trade integration. Economists suggest that any tariff-related adjustments, including import duties, will not be drastic. While Trump's tariffs may raise global inflation, the Indian government is likely to keep input costs in check without making major changes to import duties. India's long-term commitments in climate and health-related areas are also expected to remain unaffected by US policy shifts. While the US has announced 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada starting February 1st, economists point out that the impact on commodity prices could affect India's inflation rates. Experts like Madan Sabnavis note that higher labor costs in the US could drive up wages, influencing global prices. India is already evaluating responses, including potential trade deals and tariff cuts, to mitigate the effects of these global trade policies. As India moves forward with the budget, the government is trying to manage these external challenges while ensuring fiscal stability. Business Bureau, WION World is One.
For more on this, we are now being joined by a very special guest today. Welcome to the show, Mr. Siddhartha Sanyal. Mr. Sanyal is a chief economist and head of research at Bandhan Bank and also the former economist at the Reserve Bank of India. Welcome to Business Insights, Mr. Sanyal.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
First up, I want to ask you, what measures do you suggest to strengthen employment generation in India?
Yes, I think that's a very pertinent question. India has been actually in the forefront of growth. Despite the recent soft patch in growth prints, India's growth numbers is the fastest growing large economy still. Having said that, there is always a need to step up the employment generation part. I think what the government needs to do, a very, very important area, is on a long-term basis to continue focusing on skill development. The government has done well on that particular aspect, but I think this effort needs to continue for a fairly long period of time. And more so, it's not only offering opportunities or avenues for skill development. What is becoming more important increasingly, that over a long period of time, government would have to take the lead to make some of the vocational training programs more acceptable to the society and to the citizens. I think that initiative also we would like to focus a lot more going ahead in the coming years, and hopefully that should be a very, very important aspect. Apart from that, both from a near-term and the long-term aspect, some of the very important areas and some of the more labor-intensive areas. And for example, if I pick up just to illustrate the point a little clearly, if you can promote some of the areas like tourism, you can possibly do 2-3 things. One is it actually offers employment opportunities at various spectrum, and also these are some of the areas which will not necessarily be facing any threat or competition from machines, etc., technology, etc., for a fairly long period of time. So these are some of the areas we sense that government would possibly be focusing a lot more strategically We have seen that from on the part of the government. We expect that to continue at an even greater scale.
Right. I also want to touch upon how does the government perhaps plan to support the MSME sector in the upcoming budget?
So one very important aspect, which in answer to your previous question as well as this one very important aspect is the government must continue with the infrastructure drive, the commitment to infrastructure creation and long-term strategic infrastructure that they have shown in the previous few years. Our sense is that they will continue to do that in this budget as well as in few subsequent years as well. Fiscal policy, fiscal maths wise, the government is in a very strong position. I think that will be giving them a lot of headroom, a lot of cushion, and they have shown their intention to utilize that. That is very important from an MSME and from overall industry point of view also. Additionally, I think some of the other points that we see is some of the schemes, policy initiatives like the PLI scheme, which had seen pretty decent success in the initial years. We think there is room to consider whether that particular scheme can actually be expanded further to some of the to cater to some of the other sectors also. I'll not be surprised if we get to see that. And the other third thing I would like to highlight, that the government would have to, along with the financial sector regulators, would have to ensure that the flow of credit from the banking sector as well as from the non-banking sector to industry, MSME in particular, remains very, very strong and remains intact. I think generally we have seen good support from the banking sector and non-banking sectors also. It's important to see this continuing for a few more quarters.
Another pertinent question in the upcoming budget is how will it impact the rural demand? What, according to you, are the key challenges faced by the agriculture sector, and perhaps how do you expect the announcements to impact the same?
Well, that's another important question, no doubt. I think in case of agriculture, a key issue has been for a fairly long period of time, and which has aggravated a lot more of late, is frequent and considerable weather aberrations. I think there has to be a very clear mitigating strategy or mitigating tactical approach to combat that. So there has to be some strategic rural infrastructure creation on an ongoing basis that will provide some cushion, some buffer against such weather aberrations. One such area is possibly focusing a lot more on agricultural storage or rural storage. I think the importance of that can never be overemphasized. India has done phenomenally well in terms of rural electrification over the course of the last decade or so. I think a natural corollary to that is to take it forward in terms of a forward integration of better agro storage or rural storage. That will provide a huge buffer both to agricultural production growth prospect as well as to combat price volatility in agro commodities. I think that's very important. The other aspect is continued focus on areas such as irrigation, which provides a natural buffer over a period of time to such weather aberrations. So overall, my sense is that a key aspect is to create enabling conditions or mitigating conditions against weather aberrations, which had been a big botheration for the global economy, including in case of India. The other areas is possibly investing a little more in some of the technological areas or research in the agricultural areas. For example, what is the optimum and best possible balance in terms of the various NPK components of the fertilizer items, etc., etc. And we expect that to continue. The good thing in case of this budget is the government is possibly having the financial the fiscal cushion, and they are very focused in terms of where they spend.
Right, Mr. Sanyal. Thank you so much for joining us on WION Business Insights.